Welcome back to 20 Games in 30 Days. This is game number 4, day number 5, Asteroids. And I am really happy with the way this one turned out. It's a lot of fun to play. I'm going to try to have it up online, so I will put a link for that down below. But yeah, let's jump right in. I should probably put this down so I can actually make the video, and I will show you how I made it. So I usually start off with a little bit of history. There is less to say about this game. We're hitting the point in the arcade where things are getting more standard. We have standard game boards, and there's a little bit less innovation on that front. But something that is very different than the last game we played is the graphics we are using. In the golden age of the arcade, you had two major choices for graphics: vector and raster. We looked at raster graphics last time in Space Invaders. This consists of raking the photon beam across the screen and turning it on and off to get individual square pixels. And you can arrange these pixels together into what was called a sprite. What we're doing today is very different. Instead of drawing with sprites, which are a bunch of small squares, we will be drawing with vectors, which are made up of lines. And this was accomplished by taking the electron beam and moving it across the screen to form these specific shapes. And the cool thing about this is if you zoom all the way in, there is no aliasing on these. All the way down, it was perfectly smooth, even in the arcade, which was very different than sprites that were necessarily jagged and had those steps. Now you might say, well, who cares? That was back then. Nowadays, our monitors are using dot matrix arrays where every pixel is its own light bulb anyways, so who cares? Even though that's true for the monitor, our graphics cards often use vectors, particularly in 3Ds. Almost everything you see is made up of the small triangles. So even though this is kind of a silly exercise in 2D to be using lines to draw all of my stuff, when I move over to 3D and even some 2D art, I'm going to be needing to learn how to use these resources if I want to make anything with vectors. So this is not only an interesting stop historically looking at history of game design, but it also is an interesting stop in our journey to make more and more complex games as I go through this series. So before I jump in with this game, I want to actually stop and look back at the last game I made, because I had a bit of a change of philosophy on how I'm going to be producing these. And the major thing I'm going to try differently this time is adding polish early. If you've ever heard the term game juice, that usually refers to things like sound effects and screen shake and particle effects and all those things that make a game really look and feel awesome. And I realized that those things aren't necessarily that expensive. So for Space Invaders, here are two clips. This first one is the game about 90% of the way through the process. So if you were to go look at my last video, this was at the 48-minute mark out of the 54-minute video. So almost all the way done. And I'm just going to let this play out for a minute and just notice what is missing. Okay, so now I'm going to play a second clip, and this was after only a few more hours of work. So this is almost the same game. Some critical components are still missing, like animation, but I just want to play this clip and see if it seems any different. For me, those small differences of adding some sounds that only took an hour to go find and add into the game, and a little animation when things explode that shows up way too many times when you blow up the larger things or when you get shot, all of that really contributes a lot for me as a player of this game. I didn't really find this very fun or interesting to play until I put those in. So I want asteroids at the beginning to look like Space Invaders did at the end. Even when you can't do anything, I want the polish to be there up front. And my hope is that it'll make not only a better video experience, but also a better game and a better learning experience for me, that I can start making games that look and feel awesome right out of the gate instead of waiting until the final hour to start throwing in those things that really make the game. So with that said, we're going to jump right in, and the first thing I did was go play the original Asteroids. I found it online for free, which was nice, so I didn't have to fire up an emulator. And after doing that, I started taking some screenshots and some sizes, and came to the conclusion that the large asteroid was exactly twice the size of the medium, which was exactly twice the size of the small, and the ship was the size of two small asteroids stacked end to end. So with those basic measurements together, I started making my vector art. So before I draw anything, here is the asteroid, and pretty simple. It's got I'm going to replace this collision rectangle with the line tool that I'll be using to draw it, and then I have a collider for the physics object as well as a collider for this area 2D that's going to receive signals. And that's all it's going to be. I'm going to hook that up to a script, and then we're going to start drawing those shapes. But first, let me explain exactly how these layers are going to work. I'm always doing physics stuff is going to be layer and mask 1 or 0. So bit 0 value 1, whatever, layer 1. So these will be if anything bounces, which I don't think we will, but that I'm going to keep that one reserved. 2 is going to be for the player's bullets, which will hit both asteroids and there's a UFO. Layer 3 will be the UFO's bullets coming back, and layer 4 will be the asteroids hitting things. So I'm gonna actually go in here now that I've thought through this and set layer 4 for the asteroids. And I'm not gonna mask 4 because currently I don't want it to bounce. Okay, so let's start on this art. So we're gonna do a line 2D. And then we're just gonna draw this kind of blobby looking shape. And I'm gonna make sure to have a straight line at the top so we can connect straight line to straight line so there aren't any seams. So there we go, and then I'm gonna start playing with line weight and color. And this is a little hard to visualize, so I'm gonna throw in a second line render just temporarily. And with this one, I'm going to draw what will be a small asteroid. And then I'll play with those together and see if I can find a line weight I like for both. Oh, we have physics already. I think I'm going to do a width of 1. Oh, you know what? What am I doing? This should be defined through the script because we're going to probably want to play with this. So line color and line weight, I should make that a parameter for the asteroid itself. Okay, I have an idea. We are going to make a global script to hold these. So the way this works is we create a script and we put these variables in the script and they'll be publicly visible. And then when we attach this to an object, simply called global, and we go into the project settings and we add global as a essentially singleton. It's an auto load, so we can simply reference it by name, a global dot variable, and we can take that from the asteroids and apply the line weight and color directly from this singleton. So it's a nice way to manage some of these high level settings that everything needs access to. So now we have this. We're going to double check that this works. So we're going to change this back to the default purple. And we're also going to change the line weight back to the default, whatever that was, 10. So now we have this fat purple thing. And when we play this scene, boop, small and green. And because this is a global value, if we change this to, say, 3, we will get a much thicker one. we just abstracted that away, which is lovely. So the next challenge is going to be to take this shape I've defined in this line 2D and put it into the two colliders. And you'd think that it would be as simple as copying that shared resource and pasting it in, but it turns out these shapes are defined with pool vector arrays, which are by type, not by reference. So essentially it's the same as a integer or something else like that, where we have our numbers are defined, and so basically I have three variables, A, B, and C, and I have to manually set them all by clicking in all these multiple locations. So I don't really want to do that for 3 times per asteroid. So instead, I'm going to open up the source code and I'm going to take the points out of the line which I've drawn and I'm going to drop those into these two colliders. And we'll just see if that breaks everything or not. Yeah, that broke it. Wait, no, that didn't. I think. Hey! That was a bad way to do that, but I'm happy with it. And just like that, a bad practice was formed. So I'll be doing that for the rest of this time, and I'm going to define the other 3 asteroids, and I will draw their shape, and then once I have the shape drawn, I will copy and paste in the resources to get the colliders. Okay. There's our first medium, and then we are going to jump over to the source file, and we're going to copy the collider line. We're going to copy everything but the first and last, I believe is how this is going to work. And there we go. I wonder if I move this up. Now you can see they are perfectly matched. On to number 3 then. Save. And reload. Ta-da! Oh dear, that's we'll get rid of 10. Okay, we have brute forced us some art. Let's make a scene now and hit play and see how they look. We are going to set game as our default scene now. Okay, we have 3 asteroids on a screen. I will need to do some form of teleportation code eventually, but for now I just want them to move. So I'm going to throw these temporary walls in, and then we're going to start adding a movement script for these. And just like I did before, I'm going to go hit that global variable to set and define some of these asteroid speeds. So we're going to have 3 different speeds. There's a base speed, a split speed, and a speed factor. One thing to notice is these are vector 2s, which is essentially my simple way of storing a min and max value. And what I'll do is I'll tab over to the actual part where these are used. So if you look here, there's the random range function, which is used to determine where exactly your speed is between these values. And we're just using the base speed for now, but I will come back and add a split speed later. So on the theme of getting things up and running quickly, I'm going to draw a player to put in the scene. And once this guy's drawn, we're going to have a player that we can look at, and we're going to have the asteroids. And I'm going to then set up a scene where they're all bouncing around. And from that, I'm going to have that kind of running on my second monitor, and we'll do some shopping for music that seems to fit well with that. So that's, like I said at the beginning, we're doing a polish first approach. So I want to have some music and some of those more advanced features up and running right off the bat. We simply added a single audio track for now, but we now have a game with music, and I really like having that. It already feels cooler even though you can't do anything. So next up, we're going to get this guy moving, and we're going to get him registering collision. I think that's the next highest priority. Okay, we have a speed and a rotation speed. Now we need to map some inputs. There we go. Most combinations of buttons will work, depending on what you're using. Okay, first thing I notice, I'm moving backwards. Rotation works, but movement doesn't. I'm just going to take the lazy approach for now and set this to a negative. Okay, I'm going to go back into here, that control mapping doesn't feel great for the controller specifically. So I'm just going to give us a dedicated thrust button instead of using the stick, and I think that'll fix most of these problems. Okay, and just dial in the speed and rotation a little bit more and test that. Okay, now I'm going to add an animation player and create a new animation called thrust. And we're going to use that to toggle that little triangle flame on and off when we are thrusting only. And we'll add that to the script as well. I think that's not going to work though, because I think it's going to get stuck starting it over and over again. Oh, maybe that does work. But I'm going to change this play speed to 5. Just because this is... I like that more, maybe a little less. I want it to be just slow enough that you do notice it strobing. Okay, that's definitely strobing quick though. Okay. What we also want is when we're thrusting, we want a thrust sound effect. Okay, cool. Can we also get it to shoot? Let's just see if the sound plays first, and then we can try the actual adding a bullet later. Okay, instead of just making noise, let's also add in a bullet and see how this works. Okay, that's working. If you'll notice, I had to remove the black background because it was layering above the bullets instead of below. So that's something I didn't show, but we will have to fix that in the future. But it looks like we're working. A few bugs, so let's start ironing those out. Okay, step 1 is going to be a cooldown timer. Let's put that in and see how it works. Okay, that's good, but the bullets are colliding with the player and moving off to the side, so we're going to have to just fix this layering and masking. Looking better. This is quite iterative, but now we're going to scoot forwards a little bit, and we're going to run this again. Where I am. Yeah, much better. So after this, I decided to start playing around with timing. I have the fun idea of making the bullets shoot in time with the music or have it shoot with a factor of the music. So every beat or twice a beat, it ends up taking a lot longer than it should just because I'm not very good with music and I'm second guessing my math. But in the end, I think I get there and I think it works pretty well. I am happy with that. I'm going to do one last thing with the bullets. We're going to edit them to make them a bit more spiky. We're going to also modify it so they rotate when they're shot, a random rotation. And then finally, I figured out how to turn the background black. So we'll do those things. And then my wife actually swings by, so I thought I'd show her my progress and see what she thinks. Well, you notice they randomly spin one way or the other?
No, it's not breaking anything. Is that supposed to happen?
It will break something.
Okay.
But I haven't done that yet.
Okay.
Yeah, no, they're supposed to break when you shoot them, but that takes
a little more coding.
Me programming them to break when you shoot them. So, all jokes aside, I am very happy with the choice to prioritize music and some of that polish. So now that we're here, we probably should start moving on the asteroids. If you remember at the beginning, I defined some of those collisions right away. So I'm going to put a breakpoint in and see if that's working. Oh good, it looks like it is already. So I'm going to throw in a call to destroy the asteroid, and then also I'm going to put a print in there and double check that that is working as well. And for the print, I only want large and medium asteroids to split, so the small asteroid will not hit that print statement. At this point, I'm going to take a brief detour. I want to set up 3 asteroids to spawn at the beginning of the first level. This is going to be the basis for level progression, and that's going to test that my asteroids are spawning, and then I can use that same code for splitting them in a little bit. Now we're going to do something similar for each asteroid to spawn 1 or 2 smaller asteroids. And, oh, that completely failed. So we're going to figure out what's wrong with that. Okay, it turns out the code was set to large, but also the asteroid objects I put were also the large asteroid. So I had to fix that twice, and now let's give it a run. I always get random range wrong. We have more than 1 asteroid now, fix that easily. And then I also have 2 kinds of velocity. So when the asteroid's starting from a base speed of 0, it will get a random base speed to move on. But if it already is given its parent's speed when it's created, it'll instead use the split speed to take the movement of the parent asteroid, but add a random value in a random direction. So what we should see when we play is these guys are moving around. And if I shoot him, he'll split, and so if this one's moving in this direction and I shoot it, those should also move in the same direction, more or less. Okay, now that we have this, quite happy with it, but we really need to move on to the next thing, which is more game juice. So shooting's fun, engine's fun, explosions, not fun. Not only do I need to make an asteroid, but I need to make an asteroid explosion. So we're going to use a particle effect for this, and these things are fun. They're just endless tinkering and you can spend days on them. But I'm going to try to make a one-shot, which means it will fire exactly once, and then I will add a kill timer and it'll go away. So we're just going to mess with this for a little bit, hopefully get something that looks good, and then I am also going to want a sound effect as well as a particle effect. I'm going to want to also go in and add a kill timer here, so the particle effect and sound effect will be deleted once the particle effect is done playing, so we don't have a bunch of objects left over in the scene. All we really did is we added a create explosion function. So when the asteroid broke, we create an explosion now. And we will place it, and then we'll call in and we'll say boom, and we'll give it the size. And what that'll do is that will play 1 of 3 sounds, and then it'll emit the color particles automatically. So now we have sounds on sounds on sounds. So I go to level all the audio tracks, and as I'm doing that, I decide to try out a different soundtrack. So I think this fits a little better. It's got a little more variety. Both tracks are good, but I'm going to stick with this one going forwards. This is cool and all, but we still need to kill the player. So I'm going to add that in, but I'm also going to stop the main music at the same time. I feel like that'll be a pretty cool effect. So let's see how that looks. Okay, we are officially overtime now. Oops. Yeah, focused on some things that weren't as important, but were, I think, still worth it, because this just feels and looks and sounds awesome. I love that. Yeah, so what we need now is to get the rest of the game elements on. So okay, so we need to advance our levels and yeah, do all these things. I'm going to pause OBS, and I'm going to take advantage of my super ultra wide. So I'll just put this over here. I'm gonna grab my previous game that has all the elements that I'm not a fan of having to do again. And I am going to more or less take this and plop it in the new game. And then I'll come back when that's all done. So hopefully this will not take a long time because, yeah, I'm a little over time, but we'll see. Be right back. All right, I am back. This took a while, but I did most of the same things that I had in Space Invaders. The big difference is I put most of this UI stuff in a UI script, which hopefully I can use in the future. So I have the 3 ships, the score and game text. Most of the flavor text and some of that stuff is in here. Actually, I don't think I have yet a game over thing. One player died. No, so I need to do that. I think that'll work. So let's see. We start with a menu. We have press shoot to start. I'll press shoot, and now I'm in the game. And I have the major thing we still have left is these don't wrap around. And that would be fine if they bounced well, but they don't bounce well. So we really need to get that fixed. And I do have, they will spawn away from me. So if my ship doesn't exist, or if my ship is in the scene, the asteroids won't spawn within a, I think it's a 256 pixel radius. Twice the size of the large asteroid. Just gives me a little room to breathe. Oop. The final feature I think I'm still missing is screen wrapping. And as I've done in earlier videos, I thought this was going to take a long time or be difficult, so I procrastinated, and it turned out to take 5 minutes. Okay, that was very easy actually. So all I did was check if I'm outside the screen, and then I add the game window size. I put the game window size in a global. This is one of those things where if you have an idea, let me know. There should be an easier way to get this, but I tried viewport rectangle size, and when I resized it, everything broke. So I don't know what was wrong there, but this should work even when I have a non-default window size. So yeah. Now, the asteroids don't wrap and my bullets don't wrap, so that's the next step. But I have this. Really, I can just copy paste it. Again, here's another thing where I feel like I should be able to abstract this somewhere and use this code yeah, on all these, but I'm not sure how that kind of composition works in Godot. So in Unity, it's very easy to attach a dozen scripts to a single object. But in Godot, it's a little more abstract, and so I'm not sure if the intention would be for me to put this in its own script, but that seems like a silly thing to do. So I'm not 100% sure, but we do have a set velocity function. It looks like these do wrap. Okay, so the only thing left to wrap is the player bullets themselves. Okay, so now the question of how far should these bullets be allowed to travel? I think that's way too much now that they can wrap. Timer time. 3 seconds. Let's try 1. We'll do a third of that. Okay. Cool. I think we're done. Now, I'm actually having a lot of fun, so instead of stopping here, I'm going to start adding a special attack, and kind of going to play around with it for quite a while and see if I can find something I like. So, my special right now is shooting a Oop, I must have jumped. There we go. Especially right now, it's shooting a bullet without sound. 1, 2. So that worked. So now I'm going to try a few different things. This is basically like the particle effect, where I'm just going to do some trial and error until I find something that I really like. Oops, I think I broke it. Maybe we'll actually now turn back on limiting these so I can't do this again. Alright. Awesome. Now I want to probably turn the limits back on. You shouldn't have an unlimited number of these. So we should have 2, and then we'll get +1 every other level. That gave me another one. There we go. Another one in the bag. Okay. I am officially done with another game. Voice over me, you finish this. Good night. Thank you so much for watching. All of my projects are free and open source, so if you're interested in this game or any of the other ones I made, there is a link to the GitLab where this is all hosted in the description. I also am working on setting up the itch page, so at the time I am recording this, it's not quite set up, but hopefully it'll be set up shortly after the video goes live. So keep an eye out for that. And yeah, I hope to see you next time. I am going to be trying to finish Frogger before the end of the year, and possibly also Pac-Man. And then I wanted to also take a little bit of time to share a bit of my story from this past year. Game development hasn't always been easy. Programming in general hasn't always been easy, and I've learned a lot of interesting things that I thought would be worth sharing. So keep an eye out for that, and yeah, until then, thank you so much for watching.